Hey everyone, this is Matt, and we have another video related to Dark Magician, and I feel like there's a lot of stuff that kind of went unsaid in my deck profile video, which is ironic because that video was literally 3 hours long, and you might think, oh, what else about Dark Magician is there? Well, I mean, I didn't show you everything. I showed you like basically like the stuff I could come up with. This video specifically, we're going to be focusing on going second, right? So a lot of people, they saw my trap lineup and they're like, wait, how are you playing traps and no hand traps? How do you win game ones when you lose a die roll and go second? Like, oh, I've tried these same traps that you're running. It didn't work out for me. What should I do? Or like, I don't know, how do you play going second is like a lingering question that people keep asking, right? And perhaps I should have shown more, you know, things that you could do going second. So let's start with uh, a few things, right? So first of all, let's ignore the traps for now, and let's just talk about some alternative plays that you can make when you're going second. So remember how I said that hard opening Red Eyes Fusion in your hand is something that is really good because this is a card that when you play, your opponent has to negate. If they don't negate this, they're screwed, right? So you have a situation where, let's say they have one or two Omni negates, right? Like, so usually there's more monster negates in the game than Omni negates, right? Most of the time their board has one or two Omni negates, right? Opening one or two of these in your hand already will get one of those negates out of your opponent, like, immediately, right? Um, and when you think about like what kind of negates, Omni negates are even available right now in the format, Baronne's Omni negate is a once per game, like while she is on the field, right? So if you get Baronne's Omni negate on your turn, like let's say you're going second, right? Using maybe Red Eyes Fusion, that means that she's not going to have it on the following turn. So any of the traps that we talked about, like that I showed you in my trap lineup. By the way, here's my trap lineup for those of you who forgot from the previous video, right? All of a sudden it becomes a lot easier if you bait some of these negates. All of a sudden it becomes a lot easier. Like you like use one of these, you bait a negate or two, right? You set some combination of these. All of a sudden, like on your opponent's turn, you can blow out their board with these, right? Especially like torrential tribute, right? Um, so spend your first turn like. You don't have to necessarily summon Dragoon going second every time. Sometimes you just want to bait their negates, set some traps up, and set yourself up to summon the Dragoon on your next turn, right? Like, you don't have to do it on your first turn necessarily for you to stay competitive. In fact, like, at my locals, like, a lot of the game ones where I went second, that's how I won. Like, I didn't necessarily get Dragoon on the first turn. Sometimes I did. Sometimes it's just hard to Red Eyes Fusion. They didn't have an Omni Negate, or, like, they can, like, because not everyone runs, like, the same deck, right? And then I just played it. They didn't have an Omni Negate, and then I had Dragoon, and I just wiped their board, right? Um, like, especially DP. DP can't do anything against Red Eyes Fusion, right? You play Red Eyes Fusion DP, they have no choice but to suicide themselves. Dragoon will be on the field by the time DP's in the graveyard, so you can still negate DP from coming back from the graveyard. So yeah, it's just, this is a really good card. Like, this is part of the reason why you want to run three of these, because like, these are more useful going second, just because of the fact that, like, there's fewer things that can stop this. If it does go through, you break their board, and if it doesn't go through, you've baited a Omni negate or two, right? And then you can follow up and do other things, right? But just imagine, right? Like, or even just two of them. Let's just say two of them. Actually, two would be better. You can bait two Omni negates, and if they use both their Omni negates, you can now combo off into Anaconda, for example, right? And there's other ways to bait their Omni negates, right? You don't necessarily have to use Red Eyes Fusion. So let's take, for example, instead of following the Rod Souls combo that you saw in the deck profile video. So let's say you open Rod Souls. Instead of using Rod to search Soul Servant, summon Rod and search Dark Magical Circle. Once you have that, activate Dark Magical Circle. Look at the top three. It doesn't matter what you see. But then instead of using Magician's Souls to send Dark Magician Girl for cost, why don't you send Dark Magician for cost? And instead of summoning Magician's Souls to the field, summon Dark Magician to the field, right? Now, a lot of people who aren't super familiar with the fact that Magician Souls actually has two effects, right? Like, people always, oh, Magician Soul summons itself to the field, but, like, people don't realize Magician Soul has a second effect. Like, if they're not Dark Magician players or familiar with the Dark Magician archetype, this can summon Dark Magician from the graveyard, right? So if they don't, they think, oh, there's just going to be a zero attack, zero defense body on the field. Like, why would I negate this effect? Some people might think that, right? And if they don't negate this, then guess what? You send this to the graveyard, you bring out the Dark Magician, and you immediately trigger Circle and banish one of their Omni Negates, or attempt to, right? And then they're forced to negate Circle. But then, like, so that's the thing. You force them to negate Circle. If they don't, they lose Omni Negate anyway. And then you now have a 2500 beater that you can go in the battle phase and maybe do some damage. If their Barone is in defense mode, Barone's defense is 2400. Dark Magician can attack over Barone, for example, right? You have pressure, right? And let's say you're able to and let's say Dark Magician is not strong enough to attack over one of their monsters, right? Then you can link Dark Magician away into Imduck, right? And maybe Imduck can point to one of their monsters, and then in battle phase attack the monster, right? Maybe it'll force another Omni Negate, right? But let's say it doesn't, right? Let's say like you get some negates out, and then main phase 2, okay, what do you do with Rod and Imduck? You link these into Anaconda, and then you go into Dragoon, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, so, you did a slightly less optimal Rod Souls combo. Like, you're not going to get a draw 2, right? Unless, maybe Circle, like, found you a Soul Serve and you'll get a draw 1, like, whatever. Like, but in exchange, you exerted pressure on your opponent, right, using these cards. It becomes even more interesting if you also open one of these two monsters, right? Because this allows you to exert even more pressure, because not only is this a free special summon that doesn't start a chain, it's a 2k body on the field, right? If you activate it to search Dark Magician, like that's a super free bait, right? Or you can leave this in your hand, or use Illusion of Chaos to search this into your hand, and now you have an additional 2000 attack on top of Rod or Dark Magician, right? So Rod on the field is 1600 attack, but with this in the hand, this is 3600 attack. They're forced to negate, or they lose their Barone, or they lose like their Griffin, right? Or Dark Magician, like Dark Magician attacks. Apprentice will make Dark Magician 4500 instead of 2500. All I'm saying is there are ways to exert pressure on your opponent. These here, these are like your backups. Like after you've tried this and like baited out however many negates, then you can start setting some of these and then do some real damage on their turn. And then hopefully on the following turn you have follow-up, and then you can do something, right? Like if you have Illusion of Chaos, if you had Illusion of Chaos in hand to begin with, hopefully it's still in your hand. You can search another thing. Maybe if you set a thing, maybe you can link Rod away into Artemis and then recycle, flip one of these traps, recycle Rod back using Artemis, right? There are ways to, you don't have to, just because you don't summon Dragoon on turn 1 doesn't mean you lose, right? Like, if you summon turn 1 going second, you basically win immediately, right? It's very hard to lose, assuming you get Dragoon on the board at that point. So don't underestimate not only trap cards and also like your main engine pieces. Like you can do some stuff going second. Funny thing you can do is like using Secrets of Dark Magic. Like this is a quick play spell, right? Like, depending on what combination of cards you have on the field, you can either or in your hand, you can potentially either make a Dragoon, a Dark Magicians, or a Master of Chaos on their like either in the battle phase or in the main phase. Let's say you make this guy, right? What does this monster do when it's destroyed by battle or card effect? It summons out Dark Magician Girl. So if they manage to stop this monster, or like you summon this and then they destroy it or pop it or whatever, you can, it's a 2800 beater, right? Like you can exert some pressure. They pop this, you get 2 bodies on the field, and then which goes into Anaconda. You see what I'm saying? Like, so don't underestimate your ability to exert pressure. Like I'm not saying it's like perfect or that you'll always win your game 1s going second. Sometimes you won't, and that's just the way of life. But like just because I run a bunch of traps doesn't mean like I can't play at all in game 1 if I lose die roll. Case in point, I have an Eldritch deck which I literally run 33 traps. In fact, these 10 traps are literally all in my Eldritch deck, right? I specifically chose these traps from my Eldritch deck because of how impactful they were for going second in game 1. That, it's like, it's these are good. Like, yeah, obviously they're better going first, but they're perfectly workable going second. Is all I'm saying. So just keep that in mind. So yeah. Another thing about these traps that I want to say, and I just want to like talk a little bit of math here for a bit. I know people don't like math. Yu-Gi-Oh players don't like to think. So 10 traps. 10 is an interesting number because it makes calculations very easy when you have a 40 card deck, right? So if 10 of your 40 main deck cards are these cards, that means that, assuming you haven't drawn anything, right? on average, let's say on average, the probability of you drawing a card and it being one of these 10 traps is 25%, 1 in 4, right? 10 and 40, 1 in 4, 25%. Every time you do not draw one of these traps, the next card that you draw is going to be a slightly higher probability of drawing the trap. You see what I'm saying? So this is interesting because like that means in your opening hand of 5 cards, you expect to see at least one of these and maybe 2 of them, right? And then if you have other cards like Upstart or like actually when you go second you draw 6 cards, right? So the expected value is you're gonna have 1.5 of these, right? You have Upstart, you have like Soul Servant to get you a +1 or +2 draw. You have Souls, which can send cards to the graveyard to draw you more cards, right? So if you can generate like eight cards, right, on your turn, going first or second, then that means that the expected value of the number of these traps, roughly, on average, that you expect to see in your hand is about 2 of these, right? You expect to see about 2 of these. You know, so, people ask me, oh, going first, like, what's your end board? So end board, for the most part, I would say is Dragoon, hopefully, plus, hopefully 2 of these, right? Um, and you might think like, oh, how do these aren't searchable, right? How do you guarantee 2 of them? Well, you don't guarantee it. It's just you're just playing math, right? Like, so for example, let's say you get Dragoon out, right? You get your +2 from Soul Servant, maybe you get a +1 from Upstart, maybe you get you search a bunch of stuff, right? You thin your deck, right? And then you maybe get some draws. I've shown you my spreadsheets before. Here is one of my spreadsheets, right? Where I keep track of like a bunch of miscellaneous Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. So one of the things I do is I do simulations, right? I build a deck on EDO Pro because it's the fastest simulator and most user friendly. Um, if you don't have EDO Pro, please get it. It's really good for testing stuff. Run a bunch of test hands where you simply start with 5 cards, or if you want, start with 6 cards, whatever you want, right? And then record, like, make a table, like for each hand, and then just record whatever data you want. So like, for example, this column I'm recording, can this hand produce Dragoon? How many side deck cards did I see? How many hands how many boards did I end with Dark Magical Circle? How many boards did I end with Eternal Soul? How many boards did I end with Circle and Soul? How many bricks did I draw? How many, is my hand a total brick? And how many interruptions did my final board end with, right? So keep track of all those, and then you can have something like, and this is what I do. I have like an average here across all 100 hand simulations, right? Obviously, the more simulations you do, the better. But obviously, it can be time consuming. Like, ideally, I would go for like 1,000,000 hands, but unfortunately, I don't have the time for that. Maybe one day I'll write a script that can somehow do this for me and record it automatically. And if you're a programmer and you want to get into a project like that, hit me up, DM me, whatever. But yeah, like, so for example, I guess the most interesting column here is the average number of interruptions that my board has. When I end my board, finish my board, how many interruptions do I have? On average, I have about 3.1, roughly 3.08, 3.1. So slightly above 3. If you want to round it down to 3, you can round it down to 3. But if you think about it, that kind of matches the math that I was telling you about, right? Like, if I end a board like, so going back to this here, like, remember, if I generate roughly 8 cards on my turn through like thinning decks, through searches, through whatever, I expect to see at least 2 of these. So I have Dragoon on the field, that's 1 interruption, and I have any combination of these 2, that's 2 interruptions. Now, obviously, double goes in is no bueno, right? Because like, you don't want to see both of these because they don't add anything, right? Same with double skill drain. Double solemn strike, double torrential is fine. But the thing is about the spreadsheet is I took into account the interruption so that if I did draw double goes in, it does not count as a second interruption. It's a single interruption, and same with skill drain. So I did account for that in my simulations, but the math kind of checks out, right? If you think about it, right? You have Dragoon and any combination of these 2, that's 3 total interruptions going into your opponent's turn. And since these are trap cards and not hand traps, these interruptions are much, much stronger than hand traps. Like, a Torrential Tribute with a Dragoon is way more powerful than a Dragoon with an Imperm or a Dragoon with an Ash Blossom, right? Like, think about it. And in locals, this also showed, like, I was able to beat a Drytron player, like, because I had Dragoon, Torrential Tribute. Two cards, right? 2 interruptions. But just the fact that Torrential was able to clear like 4 or 5 of his monsters in one go, like, it's just amazing, right? So yeah, don't underestimate traps. And then another thing that people or like, some people that say, oh, it's. And by the way, I've gotten top 4 at my locals the last 2 weekends. So ever since I built this Dark Magician deck, I've gone to my locals twice, and I've gotten after like, Swiss, I got, I got ranked in the top 4 both times, right? Um, and and this is like so the first locals I think 29 people attended, the second one was 20. I mean, people, oh, it's locals, it doesn't matter, that's not real. Okay, fair enough. You might be skeptical of my locals, but let me show you something interesting about my locals. So this here is the blog, or the you know the summary of what happened at YCS. So this last weekend we had a YCS in Vegas, right? Or a remote duel YCS. It was supposed to be YCS in Vegas in person. I was actually signed up for this, but then they canceled because of COVID, and I did not sign up for remote duel because I think remote duels are dumb. Like, I don't like dueling remotely. There's too much room for cheating. It's awkward. It's weird. I don't like it. Anyway, yeah. So we had a remote duel YCS, and I just want to show you a quick thing. So let's scroll down here to top 32, right? So I don't know how many people are in the remote YCS. 500 plus people, 2,000. I have no idea, right? It's a lot of people. But in the top 32 here, 2 of these people are people who attend my locals almost every week. This guy here, Nicholas Fan, he attends my locals, and this guy here, Kenny Hui Nguyen, he also attends my locals, right? And another person that attends my locals is this guy here, Brian Chen. So for those of you who don't know, Brian Chen, okay, so Brian Chen in this YCS did not top. He got like 41. Still 41 out of 500 or 2,000 or however many it was. Not bad. Still impressive. But if you Google Brian Chen YCS, he is a former YCS champion. He won, I think, in 2019 in Pasadena, I believe. He was like back when he played. He's a Sky Striker player. Yeah, so he won. He got first place in YCS. He was a YCS champion in Pasadena in 2019. And in January, he played in the YCS, and I believe he got like top 8 or something. Um, or maybe it was the December YCS. One of the YCSs before this one, he got like top 8 or top 16 or whatever. He did top, right? Um, Point is, like, I play with these dudes every week, right? Brian Chan specifically, me and him are about 50%, 50-50 win rate against each other. Where is it? Oh, here. Yeah. So I play him. I play him often. I played him a good number of times. We're about 50-50 win rate against each other. Um, this dude here, Nicholas Fan, I would say I probably win a bit more than I've lost to him. He and actually like he's friends with one of my friends that I usually hang out with every week and play Yu-Gi-Oh. Like I go to a friend's house. This is outside of locals. We just hang out, play Yu-Gi-Oh. And he's usually there. Like, not always, but yeah, sometimes we just play for fun there. Like, no time limits, right? Um, Kenny Nguyen, I think I've only played him twice. He beat me both times. It was like a 1-2. Like, yeah, I haven't played him very much, but he has beaten me more than I've beaten him. So all I'm saying is, like, oh, you might laugh, oh, it's locals, like, what a joke, right? But I mean, there are YCS champions, toppers who attend my locals. I mean, and those are just the ones I know personally by name. Like, again, I've only, I haven't been going to my locals that long. Like, I came back, I think it was July or August of last year, and then I took like a hiatus due to random COVID news. So I haven't gone that many times. I met like some people, but I don't know all of them, right? Um, so yeah, I've played with some of these people, uh, including when I was visiting New York last holidays to play with. I went to the Gamers Choice, and that's where I won the locals with Eldritch, right? That Gamers Choice local is also super competitive, right? I played Eldritch there, but like, I had these traps going second, right? Game one, I mean, there was only one skill drain at the time. Yeah, I played against former YCS champions, former YCS like toppers, right? Like, so you could laugh and scowl, oh, locals joke, but I'm just saying, like, I have beaten these people. It is competitive, and the 2 times that I've gone to my locals with this Dark Magician deck, I've I've gotten top 4. So which I wasn't doing before. Before Battle of Chaos, I was not consistently getting top 4. I think at most the highest I've gotten, like with the dark, like before Battle of Chaos Dark Magician, I would usually like get like top 5, and then maybe that would get like in Swiss, and maybe that'll get me like a top 8 cutoff or whatever for elimination or whatever. So point is, like, yeah, just yeah, keep in mind every locals is different. Some more competitive than others. There's different metas at different locals, right? Not everyone is playing Barone, um, Turbo, or whatever. Like, there's still Dragon Links players at my locals. There's still Drytron players at my locals. There's still people playing Rogue at my locals. Like, I literally lost to a Dino player last weekend, which is hilarious because like Turns of Tribute does nothing against Dinos, right? Like, it's like the one deck Turns of Tribute does nothing. Okay, and then let's say you're still not convinced. Let's say, okay, you still don't know what you're talking about. You're never going to win going second in game one, even though I have plenty of evidence, and you can call it anecdotal or not, of me winning going second game one. I would say like I win going second maybe 50% of the time, maybe more. Who knows, right? Like, all right, so you're still not convinced. Let's say you're still not convinced. All right, so like I said in my deck profile video, and I'll say it again here, feel free to replace these cards with anything you want, right? Let me give you an example. Let me give you some ideas of what you could replace these with, right? So instead of 3 Torrential, 3 Skill Drain, why don't we run, how about 3 Imperm and 3 Chalice, right? So let's get these out of here and run 3 Imperm, 3 Chalice. Bam. Right? You have a card that you can play on your opponent's turn. Both of these can be played on your turn, right? Going second, obviously these can help you deal with Scythe Lock, right? If you're really in a situation where like Scythe Lock is killing you, try running these, right? Or if you have like a playset of droplets, like I would say just play 2 droplets because droplets are hard once per turn. These are not hard once per turn. Droplets are hard once per turn. So I would say like if you do have I have 1 copy of droplets. I'm not gonna buy a second copy because it's way too expensive right now. But like, yeah, I could totally see myself playing these, for example, instead of like Skill Drain Torrential, right? And then like these are perfectly fine. Most monsters in the current meta can be targeted, right? Like Dragoon is the only monster that I can think of that has that target, is immune to targeting, but like no one's playing Dragoon, not really. Yeah, feel free to play these. What about Gozen and Solemn Strike? What if I don't want to play these? All right, let's take these out and let's run instead of these two. Let's run Drone Lockbird and Super Poly, for example. It doesn't have to be these. These are just examples of something you can do. Uh, Now, why did I pick these? Well, I picked Imperm Chalice because these don't cost anything to use, right? Droplet requires you to discard and send stuff to the graveyard. These can help you stop Scythe Lock. These can try to negate Barone, can try to negate the Griffin Rider. These are just generic negates, right? If you don't know if you're going first or second. And then why Super Poly? We're in a meta right now where Super Poly is great, and we do have the extra deck slots for it, right? So remember, if you recall from my previous video, I said that the optional deck slots were these 4 fusions, right? So I'm saying, so I said that Dragoon, the only mandatory fusion. I liked the Dark Magicians as an extender. If you really want to have some super poly targets, take these out. You don't really need them. You can still do well without them. And instead of running these 4 bad boys, run some like pretty good super poly targets. I would recommend Mud Dragon, Starving Venom, Drago Stapelia, and a Prank Kid one, right? Like I chose Weather Washer because I don't have Rocket Ride. It's coming in the mail soon. If you want, you can do Rocket Ride. Yeah, Mud Dragon. You can Super Poly the Griffin Rider with Barone. They're both wins. One's a Warrior, one's a Wing Beast, right? Bam, Super Poly target, Mud Dragon, right? Like, or you're against the Phantom Knights, right? They have Bardiche and they have DPE. You Super Poly, like they try to pop their Scythe, right? You Super Poly, you can fuse DPE with Bardiche into one of these two, right? This guy, because if DPE does pop does pop this monster, then when he's destroyed, it destroys all your opponent's special summon monsters. Or this DPE and Bardiche can make this, which has a quick effect, which is basically like a monster negate, right? You put a counter on a monster, its level becomes 1, and it's just like negated forever, right? Like, so yeah. And then Weather Washer, well, you're playing a Prank Kids matchup. They bring out any 2 Prank Kids, Battle Butler, and anyone else, and you super poly them away, right? Like, so here's just some ideas. I can see myself running this package right here, right? Especially since like those other fusions are like not super mandatory. Like, why not, right? It's a good super poly meta. The only time super poly isn't good is like maybe into Sword Soul, because you don't have any targets. Like, what are you gonna fuse away? Maybe. Well, let me think. Let me see if I can think of something. Chi Shao fused with Herald of the Arclight. I don't know. Like, they're both lights. I mean, you can go to Mud Dragon. I don't know, figure it out. Like, feel free to make these flexible, but I can see myself running this package. Why 2 Super Polys, not 3? Because first of all, this requires you to discard a card, and after you Super Polyed once, you get diminishing returns. Like, the value of the second Super Poly goes down way, way more, right? So that's why I would put these at 2, right? Um, not to say it's useless. Like, plus, these can be sent off Anaconda, right? And then Droll and Lockbird. Why did I choose the Droll and Lockbird? Well, first of all, it's a spellcaster. So, if you have Secrets of Dark Magic, this and a Dark Magician Girl can go into the Dark Magicians, right, which is an extender. You can, and also, like, my locals has a lot of Dragon Link players and a lot of, like, an okay number of Drytrons, right? And you know what's really good against Drytron and Dragon Link? Droll and Lockboard. You droll them, they're done, right? So, and also we're in like a meta where we're starting to have more piles of decks instead of like 40 card decks. We're seeing like piles of 60 cards, right? Where there's a lot of searching going on. Droll is great anti-searching card. Bam, there you go. So yeah, don't like my traps? Bam, here's your replacement right here. Just run these. These are all cheap, except for Droll. Droll's a little bit more expensive. Chalice is cheap. Imperm, these are the ultras. The supers should be cheap. Super Poly is also cheap. These are also all cheap as well. So there you go. Feel free to run this. But then like if you think and even if you do make this change, and maybe I will, like right, one day. Don't forget that your side deck still has great going first or going second cards, right? So recall that for side decking options, for going first options, we have we have judgments. Summon Limit Secret Village package, which is amazing going first, right? If you know you're going first, you have these. These are amazing, right? Back row protection, floodgates, like they're screwed. And then, for going second, we have in our side deck Dark Rule No Mores, evenly matches, right? The going second special. And of course, you can also mix and match. Like you're not required to take all of these out. I'm just saying, like, even though we took out some traps, we still have some pretty good like blowout, powerful traps and stuff in our side deck. So it's not the end of the world, right? We can still do okay going second. That's the point I'm trying to make. So yeah, feel free to make these changes. I wouldn't be opposed. Uh, you know, I just think that like if you are going first, these side decks these tech cards are not going to be as effective as like a Gozen match, as a Torrential Tribute, as a Solemn Strike. So yeah, you'll just have to be a little bit more careful and use these more wisely, right? Super Poly is probably the biggest one. Like if you're going first, prank kids, right? They start coming off just Super Poly, and then when they get to the dog and one other monster, right? Like or the dog. If you can get the dog and the Doodle Doo with Super Poly and make it Weather Washer, like their turn is over. Like it's really good. So yeah, here you go. Some relatively budget options. I guess Droll's not so budget, but Droll's amazing. It's like there's a lot of searching going on in the current format, so Droll's good for that. A lot of effects you need to negate in the current format, so these are good as well. I mean, if you prefer Veiler, the only reason I'm not putting in Veiler is because you can't use Veiler on your own turn. You can only use it on your opponent's turn. And if Veiler doesn't stop them from coming off or getting their end board, like it's kind of right? I'd rather have the negates available for me on my turn. Uh, Also, Chalice is good because it can negate Shureg if they revolt on your turn, right? Or even like Battle Butler, right? Um, so yeah, try these out. Maybe you'll like them. Maybe I'll try them out this weekend just to see like if I do any differently, right? Like, I mean, I'm already getting top 4 after Switch. Like, both times I was like 4-1, like only one loss, and both my losses were like suspect. Like in the first time I went to locals, the one loss against the Drytron player was because I had Tamias instead of a third Torrential Tribute. If I had a Torrential Tribute, I would have won that game easily. And then in this last locals, I also lost against the Drytron. This time like because of time. Like we were game 3, ran out of time. If we didn't run out of time, maybe I could have I probably could have won. But yeah, I really hate time rules. But anyway, here you go. Feel free to try these out, steal them. If you prefer droplets or whatever, I guess you can sub them as well. I just don't like. I just think that the cost for droplets is a little high, and like you don't really need to. I feel like you don't really need droplet, like especially with an expensive card. I feel you can get away with these like pretty nicely. So Okay. Yeah. So hopefully this will land. This will. I hope this video addressed some of like your questions about going second, about running too quote unquote too many traps in your main deck, about like locals experience. Again, adapt to your locals. If every one of your locals is running scythe like or whatever like a specific thing, adjust these accordingly. If nobody at your locals playing prank kids, take this out. Put in another super poly target. Right. The world is your oyster, but yeah, just make sure that you activate these at the right time, right? Don't waste them or blow them prematurely. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Later, peace.